What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as RideMyAvatar, and today I want to talk about some improvements that I would like to see going forwards for Digimon TCG. Maybe they might do this, maybe not, but I think this would benefit a lot of players in a way of brand new players getting into the game, and I think that's really the big thing because, again, older players will have older cards, but when you get new players in the game, you need to have entry in a fair but designed way. So without further ado, let's get in the video and talk about it. So let's get over it right now. So major things that I want to talk about is like this right here. Let's talk about the newest starter decks of both the Shumon and the Vortex deck. Both decks were okay at best. They weren't the best, but the problem came down to was Digimon Liberators, the set, was a little more problematic to get everything you needed. I mean, even just now, key pieces for the set to make the deck even moderately okay is, you know, Zephygamon, you have Galemon, Grand Galemon, at least decently cheap commons and uncommons, but then you have Zephygamon being a little more pricier, out of your range. I mean, probably is going to be taken out once you get the ace that comes in BT20, so that'll definitely shake things up a little bit. But the problem came to an outlier of basically that you were still gate kept a little bit on the deck. Yes, you could substitute them with probably better cards, but name generic C was that the promos were a little bit harder to get. Certain promos should start seeing a little bit more reprints, in my opinion. That would definitely help a lot of players come into the game, especially because once they start seeing price tags, like even with Morphomon, and so let's even take a look here. Let me find the bigger things. As I mentioned with Morphomon, if anybody wants to play the jankiest deck in the world right now, promos have to be changed a little bit. I think they need to go back to being 2 card copies per box topper, and I think that would definitely help alleviate the stress level on players, because when you had a foil and non-foiled, the max 1 copy of 1 card was like 20 for the player, and then the rest were dirt cheap, like 25 for the foiled and then like $20 for the normal version. Then it became such a huge influx of promos that it made it a little bit more fair. To be honest with you, the way they handled the promos for, you know, Galemon and Shoto, at least they made them for Evolutionary Cups, which brought their, you know, value down. Yes, you could play the deck without them. They are not necessary for the deck, but for players that want to get the game going and they want to build the deck as centric around, you need to make sure your promos are a lot easier to get your hands on. I think recently they've strayed away from being accessible promos to being just ridiculously expensive. I mean, the big thing that with JP got for paired to us with these promo systems was the one thing I'm going to tell you right now, and that is the promos of the Shumon to Ariza to, you know, Terramon to Shoto were all given into the deck box that they were selling. So you got 2 copies of each. Why didn't we get that? I feel like the premium Bandai skipped out on that deck box for Liberators for English for some weird reason, and it wasn't the best choice. I think going forwards, you're making a unification of the game. That means product from premium Bandai should be easy to get for English as well. I know that they've done it where you can get the promos if you buy them through premium Bandai, which is smart. But what I do like that they recently did, though, going forwards, is like you know, if you guys missed out on the tournament packs, we are getting that in LM set, which is really good. We're gonna get all these copies here, to Wanya, to Mina, to all the way to Magna Garuru. You know, this is all great stuff to help out to get players into the game. That is really good game design, in my opinion. We're going to be able to get these cards at a very easier rate, which is sometimes what players need to get into the game. Is sometimes a deck needs a promo. And to tell me Magna Garuru being a promo is not easy for players to get their hands on when they're a little bit pricey. Yes, they are cheap. I want to be honest with you, $5 for a promo is cheap, but then there are other promos that players would like, and I'm going to go with Terramon being like 15s. This thing was up to 45 at one point, and like Morphemon here, it's expensive for no reason to a tier 2 deck, but because the card is so hard to get your hands on, it's expensive. Skull Knightmon, very expensive card as well because you can't get him very easily. Diaboromon Ace, no reprint in sight, but both of these very expensive cards. I mean, I'm glad that they almost come out within a certain time span that they do release a reprint of the trainings in the structure deck compared to where you got them. The trainings came out in BT14. We ended up getting the physical the trainings reprinted in the starter decks, which benefited a lot of players in a way. And we're going to get that with the scrambles too. If you guys aren't willing to pay for the LMM set, you're going to get that with that, which is good. That's great. But again, like even just with these promos, they went down extensively. So that's good to see with promos and everything like that. And then, one other thing they did do well in the past is that necessity reprints were tied to the structure deck. And hopefully with the future LMM sort unification of the products that are advanced structure decks, we see, I would love them instead of doing once a year, twice a year. Makes it so that, again, the advanced structure deck only lasts for a couple months and then boom, you're not able to compete with the deck as high as you want to, either through limitations of restrictions or just finally phased out by the, power creep. So with that, you kind of just have to take that with what you have to bite your nails with here and grit your teeth, is that like even this deck, really good at the local level, some tops in the higher level competitives, which what do I mean by that? We saw small tops in some of the online events, but once we got to a certain point, we got to here and up. This deck doesn't show up in the top radar anymore. Most of it got outshadowed and outclassed, but we'll see pieces come now and again. This was definitely seeing competitive play. This sees competitive play, and this sees competitive play. So stuff like that is vitally important to take a look at, and understanding like even giving us a reprint of this Henry was really cool. And then, full access to Double Typhoon is another way of doing things. So there are sometimes they do really well. And right now I gotta speak for Special Booster version 2.0. This set showed its true colors, and I loved the pull rates. Take out a couple rares, guarantee a secret in every box. I hope that continues, to be straight honest with you. Definitely lowers the gate for your secrets, and I know that a lot of players would get upset about. I think a lot of collectors and players that want a lot of money for their product, I think for longevity of the game, you need to have very good entry product. And this wasn't it, Chief. This was not entry to be able to be competitive. I know there's starter decks, not like the advanced deck that can be competitive out the gate, or even just like these two. These two were really solid when they came out. I mean, I wouldn't say much on the War Greymon, but the tie was useful out of it. So, and Trident Arm definitely saw some play. War Greymon Ace wasn't the best option, but a lot of this wasn't really meant for Black War Greymon. This was definitely a Mugen structure deck. But if you take even the account of this one, this structure deck, at least you see the Gabus consistently enough. You see Metal Garurumon Ace consistently enough sometimes, but you see like Garurumon as well. But everything adds up eventually. Even with the Matt Ishida too, occasionally saw some value play. So definitely I think needs to change up is their formatting on structured decks, starter decks, and then their competitive decks are very well niche, and especially with the reprints that they add into the fray is really good. And I have no objections on their advanced decks. I think they need to make, instead of 1 a year, 2 a year. I think bumping that up would definitely help out for a lot of players that just can't always get into the game at the right time. You yes, these will sit on the shelves, but then sometimes you do run into the issue with, you know, key pieces being in a following set that you just can't get anymore. But, you know, in JP, you can still get set 1, I think. Like, there's nothing in the world that you can do that wouldn't get that. But, you know, generic C is something else we need to talk about. So a lot of players have been screeching for the hills and saying we need more generically good stuff. And then we get to the point where generic C good stuff outclasses a lot of things. So something to take into account for, like this Ukumon here, very powerful card, very strong generic piece. You're sacrificing your evolve, you know, from the stack, but it sets up the moment it comes in, it can get 1 free swing in, and that's really all you need. But the longer it stays in, stronger the tempo. So, I mean, yeah, your opponent has to spend resources to get rid of it, and it's a smart play to do so. But taking a look right now, like, players are complaining and crying about, like, Regumon comboing with Hexablow. I wouldn't say there's many complaints about Regu. It's more Hexablow comboed with Mirage style of play. Mirage. So there are a lot of players complaining about, like, good generic stuff. But they also brought in the case that they wanted more generically good stuff where you don't need to be tribal based. And again, this is what happens. Game developers can't balance between tribal and generic C. So it kind of just gets to this weird, funky point where just a generically good tribal card can end up being just generically good. And it can be super splashable. So like Mirage and Hexablow instantly shows that they're a very powerful threat, especially with Hankumon being a way of unsuspending and being able to attack again, applying even more pressure. And then, like, even just taking a look, like Trubimon Ace is another big contender of being just generically good with, you know, Gallantmon Crimson Mode Ace, showing very much power hungry. Imperial Dramon Paladin Mode Ace, another great powerhouse. This thing evolves on blue and green very comfortably with no issues in sight. So being that we also see the issue with Galaxy being able to get into the best top end, blue just has one of the more stronger level 6s across the board consistently enough that just giving them the right pieces and they just go off. Then you have like Moon Millenniumon itself, a really good powerful piece, but it's a little bit, you know, locked into tribal because Millenniumon is going to be its cheaper cost. But being able to have Moon Millenniumon be a threat for a on top of level 6 for a level 7 is a very good generic card, but it's very balanced. You don't see it as superly splashed like Paladin Mode Ace or, you know, Trubimon Ace, or, you know, Crimson Mode Ace isn't as seen as much anymore, but players do play it from time to time. So when we see generic C, I do like that we're seeing a lot more generic, but at the same time, I do hope that they kind of tone back a little bit. We don't need too much generic good stuff because eventually all you're doing is just having basically great engines running decks at top speed. You know, any X antibody that is in purple for the foreseeable future, you will not get any player off the dog engine. There is no way you're going to get them off it just because of how powerful it is. You know, Cerberusmon X plus Dobermon X is just such a powerhouse engine that it just leads to being crazy with Protoform involved. So I know people are kind of upset with Protoform, not like new players though. I'm going to be straight honest with you, are having issues more than older players. A lot of newer players can't get into that because of the price gap, because they're just trying to come in and, you know, well, I want to play my silly B deck. Well, can't play my silly B deck because on a budget for players that basically this deck costs maybe 20 bucks to build, you're now having to spend what for 3 to 4 120. That does phase out a lot of players from being able to play certain decks because all of a sudden good generic X antibody stuff Protoform's another contender on that. It just is good card be good. You know, yeah, it was cheap for players back in January when they first dropped this card, but now we're months in and there's no way of getting this card besides now getting into regionals and getting lucky. If it happens, it happens. Congrats. I do hope that at the end of the day that we start seeing a little bit more reprints, not on the scale of, you know, reprint booster, because let's be honest, older players did not need this. Where's the reprint booster? You know, the reprint booster, all that good stuff that was great for new players, but you kind of just hurt a lot of the players. Yes, they cried and complained that, hey, why aren't we getting the same thing as JP? I mean, they should have adapted a little bit differently. I think, yeah, they took out the, you know, alternate arts, memory boosts that they had in that set, and then basically said, yeah, no, we're just gonna do this now. So that definitely hurt in bad taste. If you put the alternate art memory boost in that main set to pull instead of giving them as gift boxes, I know that was their intention the whole time, but that changed up and pushed everything out. But definitely hurt with product release being this dragged out so late in the year, and this definitely hurt a lot of stores' competency because they were ordering product at a consistently high rate, and that definitely dropped. Another thing that I hopefully, at least with Special Booster 2.0, they increased the product flow, which is good. We need more product for players to get into the game, and that definitely helps out. So hopefully going forwards, we get the same allocations across the board. But let's take a look at just generically good stuff. You know, I'm taking a look here. You know, Protoform has come down a little bit. Duskmon being really good. So Susanamon Ace, a secret that you could pull in your 2.0. 2.5 and 2.0 are going to be very dirt cheap on your secrets, on everything, because if they keep the consistency of 1 guarantee secret and 2 alts, oh my god, that's great. We would love that across the board constantly. You know, keep it like similar to the EX boosters. Just instead of doing, you know, two shots, make it 3. Players enjoy that more. They feel like they're getting something out of it, and it keeps a lot of the cards a little bit cheap, but it doesn't all completely kill it. You know, to be straight honest with you, if we go and look for Mirai, I can tell you right now, Mirai's quite expensive, and that's just because of her tax on her. But she was a little bit more easier to get your hands on. Not guaranteed secret per box, but you know, it does matter sometimes. I mean, even like Shoto's coming down for an alt, but let's see, Mirai. So taking a look, Mirai's down to $30, which is really good to see for a card like this. I mean, the deck isn't that crazy, but even taking a look, Queen Beemon's at $5 a pop, and that's if you can just get the deck in. So, and then Rapidmon X Antibody. Like I said, the advanced decks, they definitely needed this card to be able to play the deck in its full power, and this card was just ridiculous for a while. You know, started out at 52s, took a while to even get below 40s, and now we're into 28s, which is good, but that took so long for players to be able to play the deck, which Beelzemon did better because instead of slapping it with a secret to build the deck's additions, they added everything as a lower rarity in the shape of, you know, Beelzemon X was a super rare. That made it affordable. If you're going to make your advanced decks, do not ever put them as a secret chase card on top again. I think it should be super rares and below just to get players into the game, because it's vitally important for them to be able to play the game in a way to start out. Being able to watch as you get smacked around by your opponent that has a lot stronger cards than you doesn't really motivate new players into the game. It just feels like they're getting gatekept, and it really produces that power creep gap that, again, I think another structured deck, like I said, another advanced deck every year, so 2 a year would be phenomenal. That's what you definitely need to do, Bandai. And then, like, even taking a look here, BT16 sitting at $165. You can't get this cheap. This set was so hard to get your hands on. I think I only got 2 boxes, and then I had to buy singles the rest of the way. And then even taking like Animal Coliseum, 2 boxes I was only getting my hands on. If I wanted to buy it right now, I could definitely do that. I wish I bought them at the 50s because that would have been really better on my wallet. But if I needed to $75 is a little expensive for a lot of players. Then taking a look, release special booster, $90, but definitely not completely worth that 90. But the amount of super rares you get, very solid in my opinion. But even taking a look, Liberators is at $90. I think this is gonna struggle a little bit for them. I know Bandai is going up in their pricing, so definitely next year boxes are gonna be a little bit more expensive. Packs are gonna be a little more expensive. So that means, you know, your cheaper cards are gonna be harder. If they're gonna up their ante here, what I think is just guarantee a secret per box. I think a lot of players don't mind dropping a little bit of extra cash if they can guarantee that they're getting their secret, you know? But even like Infernal Extension, looking at $169 is crazy to me. And then some stores would price match this. So it makes it really hard for players to get into the game when boxes are even just out of their reach. So guys, things that we're going to wrap this up on. I think advanced decks need to come in twice a year. I think product should be similar to Special Booster 2.0. I think main sets should have just guarantee secret and two alternate arts in it going forwards. I think that's a beautiful addition, and I think that would be fantastic. I think we should get, with LMM sets, reprint sets that have vital key pieces is really good. I think getting players to have access to these things is very important. I do like, but I also think structure deck wise, they need to do better on it. They've just been dropping the ball for a while now with them. They're just not strong enough to even compete at their level that they need to be. They're almost like close to tier 3 status. And that's a problem. At least, you know, there's usually one that kind of just sneaks into the meta and then kind of holds strong there. But the last couple ones haven't really done that in a sense. You know what I mean? And it felt like structure deck wise, I wish they go back a little bit more and just make sure that even just one is competitive enough to get into the game. So I think change up into the structure decks will definitely help out, you know, or aka starter decks, and then the advanced decks. I think 2 a year is really good for players across the board. I think promos definitely need to change from their 1 per box shenanigans to being 2 per box. If you're gonna do this, I think especially for new promos. Older promos, you can definitely do like alternate arts and stuff like that of sets. Put them in the box 1. That's fine. Make it 2 though, for if they're a brand new promo, if it's a buy a box. I think a foil and non-foil being in the box will help alleviate the stress on players getting into the game, because right now this is what's happening. Promo is just becoming, you know, Bandai's becoming promo fight, you know, promo die. You know, this is basically just really bad design. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. If you do agree with my points, any changes you would personally make, let me know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.